Yeah, nice to see you all here. My name is Jussi Juntunen and I come from Oulu as well. I work for OP Bank, and I work as a service designer in this kind of a new business development unit called Kiihdyttämö or Accelerator. And I've been working in OP for 4 years now, most of the time doing Pivo. And I'm still doing Pivo as a lead designer, but now also trying to kind of come up with the new pivos from different business areas. So I'm going to tell you a bit of this new team that we have and our ways of working there. And like I said, our unit is called Kiihdyttämö Accelerator, and our main job is to learn faster. So that's why I titled this presentation to How to Accelerate Learning. Couple of words about our unit. It was 2011 that OP decided to start this new mobile development unit in Oulu. At the same time when Nokia was just about to close in the same area, and majority of us have some kind of a Nokia background, either internal or as a subcontractors, and we have roughly 150 people working there, a lot of in-house development and in-house design, and we are basically doing op.fi and OP Mobili mobile banking app, and then Pivo, and some internal solutions as well. Quite a lot has been told about Pivo already in different forums. I've been giving presentation about the design side, and Christian, my boss and colleague, has been talking about this whole like idea to product cycle. Just briefly, Pivo was like the first product that our team did with this new kind of lean startup approach. So it's totally different kind of project in OP context, at least, or it was at the time, and it still is very unique project and product in that context. When our Oulu unit was started, OP was pretty much still with the waterfall kind of process, and we slowly started to shift towards like agile development, but everything was still pretty tightly aligned with OP processes, for example, like releasing schedules and so on. So in Pivo we had this kind of a total autonomy in our team, so we didn't have any like brand guidance or we pretty much had our own ways of dealing with kind of internal dependencies and basically just completely new way of doing stuff. And the product was also completely new, made from scratch, based on real user needs and iterating quickly and so on. It's been pretty good. Users seems to like it, and it seems that the design is not getting old, which is good. And Pivo users recommend our bank about 5 times more likely than the customers that are not using Pivo. And now we have this kind of a wider scale in our new unit that we are trying to find those, like I said, new pivos from different business areas. And the people in our company are also starting to buy this idea about how to do things in a new way. So the Accelerator unit was pretty much built on top of the Pivo team as well. So before going deeper into the how part of this presentation, I show you 2 slides about why we should learn to learn, basically. So this guy here he's Jacob, and he's a co-founder and CEO of Ixonos, having a speech in Slush about a month ago. I was watching the whole like the fintech track there, and they all were pretty much repeating the same mantra about banks and their businesses and how the business is being like disrupted with these smaller startups like them. And there were companies like Ixonos and TransferWise, Klarna, and so on, and they all like literally gave no mercy for banks in a way that, I mean, everyone had some kind of a slide with this the bank on a cracking granite background or so. This is all, of course, something that has been coming for years, but now it's like literally said aloud, also here in Finland. So competition is tough and getting even tougher. So the truth is something like this. Huge amount of new companies doing small bits, tiny slices of our business, and to be honest, usually doing it better. More customer-friendly way, more desirable way, and in more agile way as well, making it lean and so on. Basically focusing on a tiny segment of our business. And I've been actually noticing that there has been some like arrogance in people's attitudes towards these startups. It kind of reminds me the attitudes in Nokia when the first iPhone came out years ago. So this is definitely something that needs to be taken seriously. And what this means for us is that everything we do needs to be benchmarked globally first, and we need to be able to develop quicker and design faster, and we need to sort of like redefine our business for the future. So learn faster about like new technologies, new businesses, new kind of customer behavior or new customer needs and new ways of working and so on. So we need to be able to learn faster, basically. And that's the reason why we now have this internal accelerator unit. So our main task is to like observe the world and learn, try things up fast and hopefully fail as well, which is a natural part of doing new stuff, and try again for sure, and in some cases succeed. Then about the how part of this learning. How do we learn? In our process, everything pretty much starts from the idea. We have plenty of ideas, like everyone has ideas. Some of them are good, some of them are not. And we have this innovation, like internal innovation platform called Hoksamo, which basically works so that all OP employees can post their ideas related to our products, services, processes, businesses, whatever, and we take those in our tube, which I'm gonna show you in a second. But like I said, we are like actively following the world. We are trying to observe the trends and behavioral changes and business changes and so on. And we also follow our competitors and startups. And yeah, finally we are in a kind of a gentle guidance of OP's new business unit. They are doing the strategic level decisions and giving input as well. So that's about ideas. Then we have this funnel or tube, I like to call it, with some gates in it. And basically what we do is we throw all of our ideas at this and question the idea at least 4 times during this process. So meaning that we are trying to actively kill the idea at least 4 times. I'll go this briefly through first, so let's go deeper with them. So the first phase, first gate is the problem validation. So basically, first phase is to understand the problem and create hypotheses and define like open questions if you have any. And then we usually do a customer research on the first stage. So this phase kind of validates our problem by answering to our hypotheses and to our open questions. And it also gives us like a more general understanding on the domain area of the idea. Second phase is a solution validation in a way. In this phase, we try to find ways to fix the problem in some new or clever way. Usually, we start by double checking our direction based on the customer research that we made, and then we use design sprints to come up with new concepts and new solutions for the issue. And usually we come up with one or more customer validated concepts in this stage. Third phase is it's kind of a market validation in a way. We're trying to find the product market fit in this phase. For some reason, I find this the most kind of difficult phase in a way that we try our best to validate if the users would like to take this solution into use. And we can also get some initial gut feeling or clue about the business model as well in this phase. But let's talk about that in a second as well. Fourth phase is the piloting phase. So happy customers. We do internal pilots, limited external pilots to see if the solution works so that it makes basically people happy. And then we have this new thing coming up, not sure if it's released yet actually, called OP Lab, which is a public website for all of our products and services in pilot or beta phase. So that's basically our funnel or tube that we use to learn, basically. About the goals, there's of course release in the last phase if the idea is good enough. About the goals, I think these numbers pretty much nail down the idea of this funnel. So, like I said, all ideas can't be good. If all of our ideas go through this tube, there's something wrong with the process. So we had a target of 15 ideas for research, 5 validated concepts, 2 prototypes, and 1 release for this year. And there's actually one crucial question missing from this funnel. Can any of you figure out what should it be? What could it be?
For me, this something that look like really internally driven.
Uh-huh.
If I'm getting all the ideas internally, and when the big transformation comes, you get blindsided on having worked in a certain industry for a while.
Yeah, that might be true. The question was, what I was looking for is about money. So basically, does this solution bring new business? Really, does it make money? So, like I said, we can get some clue on that in the different phases, but the final answer is very difficult to have at this stage. So it usually comes after the pilot and after the release, when we really can see that if people are if they're ready for to pay for a service like this. Any other comments about this funnel in this phase?
Yeah, I like it a lot. But what is the time frame? Do you have all the time on different stages, different ideas,
yes.
Going through it's like an ongoing process?
Yeah.
And then what is sort of the time frame for going through the whole funnel?
It depends on the idea and how kind of difficult it is to get through the gates. I mean, we're doing iterations in different stages as well. So some idea might require, second design sprint, for example, if we just can't come up with the solution. And some ideas just leave there. If we notice that this is not a problem to solve, we are not going to take it further to tube.
Jussi, are you going to talk more about the validation materials?
Yeah. Sure. So the first phase, like I said, is the problem validation. We usually start by guessing something. We usually have some like direction already in the beginning, and we usually end up with five hypotheses and about 5 open questions. And idea is not to do just explorative research in a way that we actually have quite a focused view already in the beginning to answer these like first hypotheses and questions. And sometimes we even have kind of an initial concept at the starting point as well. Usually we do 10 to 15 interviews, and then like basic couple of days analyzing sessions and so on. So pretty like a regular user research thingy going on. We have come up with kind of a cooperation model or process with our partner that we kind of summarize the hypothesis and try to focus the problem and then do the research brief for our partner, and they are basically doing the discussion guides and actual interviewing to save our time. And I personally participate in all of the analysis to get the knowledge to understand the data. So it's not just about the PowerPoint file that we get from the research phase. What do we learn in this phase is if we guessed right or wrong, then we learn about the domain, like the basic stuff about problems, attitudes, goals, current practices, and so on. We might find some signals about like personas or lead users in this stage, and yeah, sure. Of course, we are also validating the problem if it's worth solving at all. So that's the first phase. Second phase, like I said, we have been using this Google Ventures design sprint model. Squeezed that to 4 days from that 5-day structure. I'm not sure if you are already familiar with the basic structures of design sprints, but it basically means like sharing all the knowledge, brainstorming ideas with varying methods, drafting concepts and focus on the best ones, and then prototyping and validating with users and understanding and learning. We usually end up doing like pretty basic like concept validation interviews with paper prototypes or early HTML prototypes or so. So we're not testing interaction or the UI in this phase. It's more about testing the idea, trying to understand if the idea is good or not. And in terms of learning, in this phase we learn if we can basically come up with the better solutions for the problem. So we get the initial idea on how the users perceive our concepts. And then we can, of course, kill the ideas that are not working and continue with the ones that are working. And our task is also to actively learn about new methods in these different phases. So we are actually actively testing new methods to support brainstorming and to validate concepts and so on. We kind of test those methods, and if they seem to work, our like other parts of company, other organizations can also adopt those ways of working. We have kind of a freedom to fail with our stuff that we do. That is always not the case with like the actual business development units. They have pretty tight schedules and tight focus on the existing products already. Then this is, like I said, this is the most kind of difficult phase. This is also the most recent phase that we've started focusing on and doing. So after we come up with a user-validated concept, we usually start thinking that what is the next thing that we need to learn? What is kind of the next biggest risk to validate, like it said. Then we think about how to test that with minimum effort and what to measure to get the knowledge. Some methods, as an example, we can use landing page testing, we can use A/B testing. We haven't yet used Concierge and Wizard of Oz methods. These are pretty much the methods that, like the, or at least according all the relevant books, this is kind of all the magic that the most famous grown-up startups have been doing. So Concierge and Wizard of Oz, they are basically methods of faking the actual product without doing it actually, but faking it somehow on the background and then just let users to use that. For example, I think Uber did this by renting a couple of cars and drivers in some certain city before they actually had the service running. So they basically faked the service on the background. Just to test the idea, test if people would be willing to use that kind of service. Because you can't have that information by asking it from the users. So yeah, in terms of learnings, we learn that can we validate the product market fit thing, and do we have a business case? Then the final stage, the fourth phase, is the pilot phase. At first, we develop a prototype of or a real product MVP for the pilot, and then basically do the pilot. And we also, of course, validate the basic usability stuff by doing usability tests. We do concept validation interviews and try to tighten and focus the concept during the way towards the MVP. And yeah, it's all about this lean learn, fix, test again cycle, which you probably are familiar with already. And what do we learn? We basically learn that if we can come up with the product or prototype designed so that people are happier than before. If we think or take a look at this funnel again, we have quite a lot of stuff there already going through the tube. Our unit was started in April in this year, and we've been doing this for 8 months or so. And the numbers for this year are that we have had 10 ideas for research. We have come up with 20 or so concepts and 10 or so prototypes, and we have 2 products going into a pilot in the near future. So these are the numbers for this 8-9 months period at the moment. Unfortunately, I can't open the concepts that we have in the tube, but yeah. Shortly about the others. I've noticed that.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, sure.
How big is the group that is working with those results? How many?
You mean internally in our team?
Internally and also what
have,
is the resource?
We have 10 people in the concepting phase doing basically this funnel thingy. And then we have the pivot development team, which is about 30-40 people roughly. And they are kind of working as a pool for our new products as well. Yeah. So 50 people or so. But we are in a need of growing that if we're gonna continue like this.
Do you have any people with the business knowledge involved, like some sales representatives or?
Well, not sales representatives, but we have this business design knowledge in the beginning, in the starting phase. We do this I'm not sure if it's part of the service design actually to define the business model, and we do the business canvases and lean canvases as well for the products. So we are trying to tackle that in the service design, from the service design point of view.
So you don't have a business account knowledge in your team?
Not in that sense.
Okay. Because like you said, like on the step number 4, you actually come up with the validation of do you have any business case there?
In the last phase.
Oh yeah.
We usually have, or at least we are trying to. We are trying to come up with, like for example, thinking about the purchase model or how much it does pay to use this service, for example. We are trying to test those in the final stage as well.
And what if those products would be for OP? Like what is the expected outcome from the business sense from OP?
They should be new businesses, like in new areas that we don't have the actual ownership yet in our existing product portfolio. So they are kind of new startups, internal startups in a way. And that's why we also have to prove the business case, because we can't be sure if it's a real business case in that.
Do you think you can shorten the validation of the business case? Like not, because you have internal pilot in step number 4, and it's the only case when you actually talk about the money and the actual business feasibility of the idea.
Yeah.
Because you do the customer research in the first step, and then you only check the market validation when you do have already some sprints. And if you refer to the lean startup a number of times, but they actually do validate the strategies. Recommend to do validate the strategies actually on the first step.
We don't usually do that in the first. We try to come up with the problems and the solutions first, and then try to validate the business later. So that's in our process, at least at the moment. But that's, like I said, the third phase is the most new one in our process, and it's a bit difficult phase actually to validate the business during this tube, and we're trying to actively learn about that more. That's something that we've been recently trying to take into account as well. But yeah, about others, there are plenty of similar models out there. This is from Futurize, and you can pretty much find the same phases. There are problem validation, research done, ideation, concept validation, and so on in that as well. There are stages like business validation, market validation, releasing, testing MVPs, and so on. And this is from the Lean Startup machine, kind of a validation board. Again, same stuff, but in different looking boxes. So what I'm basically trying to say that there are plenty of these out there to copy or try the best practices in your own process. Method-wise, this is from New York Times actually. This is kind of a service design or product design playbook. It's full of methods for different phases, quick ways to validate things in different phases of the product design cycle. So basically there are methods for understanding the business, understanding the user, understanding the problem, confirming the problem, narrowing the field, testing, validating, and all that. Plenty of methods, models, processes available out there. In addition to that tube or funnel that we have, next year we have to figure out how to kind of dance with startups as a big company. It seems to be the future for big companies at the moment. So we try to investigate how to do that in our case. We are also thinking that, because since we don't have time to do everything by ourselves, we are trying to come up with ways to do cooperation with, for example, design agencies. We have tried different approaches, and learned a lot about that. Fintech scene is something that we are actively following, and we have this role of like also teaching our organization about like what is happening in that area. Open APIs are the future also in banking area. Due to regulations, banks need to open their data in the near future, so we need to think how to prepare for that. What is the role of bank in 2020? Are we going to be in the service business, or do we act more like the operators, basically providing the data and the APIs to the data for the third parties? Big data, we have such unique data to use for really intelligent and modern experience. We need to dig into that. Intelligent banking is related to the previous trends. Like I said, we need to follow trends, for example, like self-measuring mobile trends and so on. They can affect, for example, to insurance services, or they already do affect there. Since I'm a designer, I think it's important to look at what is going on in the service design area and UX area as well. And then last but not least, this OP Lab concept is going to be interesting. I believe we will be using that quite a lot in the near future. But that's about it, basically. Comments, questions?
Thank you, Jussi.